I am telling you, it is the definition between an entrepreneur and an employee. The employee goes to the cliff, looks over the cliff, says, is there a balloon down there? Do I be safe? What happens if it hurts? What if I land on my neck? The entrepreneur, they said, we need to jump off the cliff, backs up 10 feet to get a fucking run.
This town needs an enema.
Fuck.
Julio! Where's Commissioner Brady?
Come on. You guys take beating.
You stupid!
You don't really think you'll leave? Things change.
You got me? Who's got you?
Everything changed. And anyone who tells you different is just lying.
You know who this is? This is Mark motherfucking Sylvester.
Nailed it again.
Get
it in a row, like 1,000 times in a row. We're just badass. That's what it is.
It's our first rodeo.
It's definitely not. So guess what we're doing tonight?
Lots of
besides the main thing.
Oh yeah. Fill me in.
This is the first time we're trying to stream to Instagram. So we'll see how it goes. I don't even know if I did it right. I don't see that there's anybody actually watching over there. So who knows if it's actually working or not. We're gonna find out. We're definitely gonna find out.
Nice. Does it hurt your self-esteem? Like nobody's watching. It's like
when you go to a brand new platform for the first time because nobody's expecting it. Yeah, it kind of hurts my pride a little bit, right?
I got all these followers.
I'm like, where is everybody?
Where's my likes? Hey, chat, can you hear me properly? I'm just testing out my mic on my computer. Just want to see if it comes out good on your guys' end. If I got to do adjustments or
no, it sounds good, man.
Right, cool.
Finally back in the studio with an actual mic.
So far, for a while.
Yeah,
just for this episode.
Just for this one, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, bro.
Let's say hi to the chat real quick. It's not showing up in the StreamYard, so I can't bring it up. But Mark Penguin was #1 in the chat and #1 in our hearts for starting this stream when I dropped it last night. We also got a member of the channel, Rick Saylor, in the house.
What's up, brother?
Good to see you. Dennis Kelly's in the house as well. Says, hail Joe, Sean, Kayla, Benitez in the chat. Love Benitez art. Yes.
Facts. We're going to talk a lot about that.
We are. It's going to be awesome. Here on the Steadfast, member of the channel is in the house as well. Hail to you, brother. We got Elon Mudd in the house. Look at you. Like and subscribe. Yes, please. If you're watching for the first time, whatever platform you might be on, whether it's YouTube, whether it's X. We're not doing Rumble tonight. For some reason, I couldn't get it hooked up, but we are doing Instagram, so who knows? We'll see. We got pizza in the house as well, saying hello. Silver Ogre, I haven't seen you.
Yo, what's up? Good to see you, man. That's
awesome. To see you.
Cool.
Got Edwin in the house. Hail to you.
What's up, brother?
Member of the channel, Cosmic Studios, dropping by to say hey. Good to see you, brother. Got YSA in the house as well. Charles Revis is here. We got West Coast Devengers.
Devengers?
Interesting. I don't know if I've seen that name before.
Cool,
I like
cool.
it. Also, Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for being here. All right, we're going to jump on this and get started because this is going to be a fun show. We've been looking forward to this for a little while now.
Yep.
And I'm going to kick it to Sean. So it's Thursday night. It's 10 o'clock. I'm feeling good. Welcome to
the 4-year anniversary of Art and Stuff. Almost 24 years in the business on a technicality. Like Norman, my skills are the baits. I might be dysfunctional, but I'm functional. I'm recklessly charismatic, editor extraordinaire, the Hispanic god on paper, creator type 1, the only one, except no duplicates,
I'm cooler than a gang, Jersey's finest, Sean Ahrendt. With me, as always, my brother and I.
Yeah, I'm the very talented, very sexy, very distinguished, always narcissistic, but never vain, staunch defender Rob Liefeld, and Gina Crown, the lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M Sonntag, if you prefer, as the Pope likes to call me, JMS. Welcome to the show, and as always, what an awesome show it is we have for you tonight, because damn it, Sean, who the hell are we talking to tonight? I'm so
This
jacked.
is going to be a while, so get your popcorn.
Oh, let's go.
One of our favorite artists and inspirations, starting off as an image rookie for the Homage Studios to later start off the Top Cow Studios under Mark Silvestri's tutelage. He began doing background assistance, pinups, trading cards, to his first book, Cyberforce Origin Cyblade, and onto Codename Strike Force 8. That led him to working with Walter Simonson on the space sci-fi adventure series Weapon Zero. From Devil's Reign to Darkness, he became a fan favorite. His rendition of Magdalena in her own series is a work of art. With the highly underrated Wraithborn series, he showed his own creative freedom, was one to be aspired upon. Followed a short stint at DC illustrating Batman, Superman, the Justice League, to the Titans and Supergirl. He showed classic characters being exciting again. After helping Aspect Comics finish off Michael Turner's Soulfire series, he went back to the creator-owned route with the highly popular Lady Mechanica series. Please welcome and drop fire emojis in the chat for Joe Benitez.
Let's do a fire. Let's go. Hail,
Fire.
Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
Thank you
what's
so
up?
much for being here.
Thank
No
you.
problem, man. Thank you
let
for
me
inviting me.
Oh, it's an honor.
I was just going to say, it's an absolute honor to get you on and talk to you about comics, your career. Just we're both big fans here. If for those who have watched the show before, if you're watching it for the first time, Sean and I grew up in the 90s. We were young kids / teenagers in the 90s, and the art in the 90s were heavily influenced by us. And you were one of the names that popped off in the 90s. We call it the we don't necessarily call them the image rookies, but it's the second wave of like the big names that kind of made their name,
The
in
Dream Team,
Outscore and Top
Yeah.
Cow and all these
Yeah.
places. And we've been following you for a long time, even to this day. So it's an honor to have you on and talk to you. So yeah, I'm excited. The chat's excited. Look at all these fireballs.
Fires, nice.
Look at that. Thank you guys
There
showing
you
up,
go.
dropping the fireballs. Let's go. Let's go.
Fuego.
Good to see you. Hell yeah. All right. So I
That's
want to
what's
go
up.
back up to this. Wait. Where was it? Where did I miss it?
Dave.
Okay. It says, fun fact, Joe Benitez created me too.
Nice.
Is that your kid?
It's we created a character.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, welcome, Dave. Good to see you.
Okay. All right.
Chuck Gibson's in the house. Tuned in tonight just to say
Oh,
hi to Joe
shit.
Benitez.
What's up, Chuck? Long time no see.
Yeah, he said I haven't talked to Joe in
Nice.
30 years. Awesome.
Yeah, you
All
did.
right.
I think I'm not exactly sure, but I know he inked a Gen 13 pinup in the
Nice.
first issue. But I don't know if we worked on anything else other than that together.
No, it's awesome. Bringing people together. That's what we're here for.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Okay.
Instagram. All right, cool. We got a couple people watching over on Instagram. Looks like we got Steve Burkhouse over there. Shout out to you.
Steve,
Good to
what's
see
up?
you. Steve is actually coming on next Wednesday to the
Mhm.
show. So we're really
one
excited about
of
that.
the most talented artists that I've ever had the pleasure of working with.
Yeah, all around.
Yep.
Talented
Yeah.
dude. Talented
Oh
dude.
my God. Yeah.
Like I fell in love with his work back in his coloring when he broke out in the 90s and early 2000s, but his painting is just all around stuff. Like he's just a talented dude.
Yep.
Beautiful color palette. I mean, he
Yeah.
just has such a just vibrant, amazing aesthetic. So yeah, I've been fortunate that I've had the pleasure of working with him on a few pieces.
Yeah, one day I still gotta get him to
Very cool.
gotta collab with him on something because he's another one of those guys that I grew up just idolizing because those names are always around. So I mean, the way it is for me when I was a kid, I read a lot of Image was my favorite thing. I gravitated to Top Cow at some point, and all of a sudden, all these names started popping up because Top Cow. I mean, well, everybody in Image had a talent, a ton of talent. I don't want to put down any of the houses in Image because there was a ton of talent coming out of Extreme, Wildstorm, but Top Cow was there was something different about Top Cow, especially when they got into like the Witchblade and the Darkness and all that stuff. And you had guys like Finch and Turner, obviously. You know, we throw your name on all the time when we're talking about the big Top Cow names. There was just something different about that style of book. Like it was, I don't even know what to say. Like I've heard people
Their
say
production never dummied down. Like
Yeah,
when other studios went to different paper formats, like they still kept it as high quality as it could be.
I think I think it was Brian Haberlin was basically he's the one that brought in the whole I think he basically perfect the whole digital coloring. Like we I don't know if we were the first, but I felt we were the best around then with our look.
I think hands down. There was just something different about the look of the books. And I know we usually kind of start on a different track with this, but since we just kind of naturally found our way into this, when I look at a lot of the old Top Cow books and I look at all your guys' work, and we have a show on Tuesday nights with our other co-host Kayla. It's called Appreciating Comic Book Art Live, and we just go through and we look at comics that inspired, basically the artists that inspired us, right? And so we've looked at like Finch's stuff, we looked at Turner's stuff, obviously we looked at Silvestri stuff, and we looked at your stuff. We looked at your stuff for the Magdalene run, I believe that you had. And one thing I noticed when it came to the sequential storytelling, I thought you guys were all very similar in the way that you were able to tell a story, or that you created stories. Was that something that was just inspirational from the guys because you saw each other's work all the time, or was it something that might have been directed from Mark, or how'd that come about?
We all had our own artists that we followed, and we sort of fed off each other. Like I tell the story often about when Mike was at the studio early on. He came up to me and he asked if he could ask me some questions about, like who's my favorite artist and why, who's the hottest artist, or who do I think is the hot artist around then and why. And I would break it down, like for instance, my soup was, I love Wills Portacio's Anatomy. I love that it's like he had a look that's very fashion, like, little heads, big bodies, everything looked very sexy.
Yeah.
When it came to the layouts, McFarlane was my guy. McFarlane and Liefeld had this very dynamic, exciting panel work, and it's like, so that was my thing. I would follow that, and it's like we all kind of had our own thing. I think Finch, Bisley was his guy, so it's like he had, like he was a combination of Travis, Mark, Bisley, and what do you call it, Mignola. I wanted to be more of a McFarlane, Wills, Jim, Golden guy. Like that was my soup. And basically we just looked at what the other person was doing and kind of, oh, that's cool, let me try to do something like that or better.
Yeah. I often wonder, because we've had a couple people on, obviously, like we've talked to Brett before, and when we talked all these stories about the early Image days and the early Image houses, and it never really dawned on me until earlier when we were getting ready for the show, and I thought about it, about like the actual, because the paneling, the sequential storytelling, and I'm talking specifically viewers out there, the way that the panels were constructed on the page was so, I thought, innovative and just different than what other companies were doing. And Marvel kind of caught on wind and started going with some of their younger guys over there, and still had like this dynamic stuff. But Image just had like this crazy dynamic way of telling a story. Like the entire page was like a work of art. We're talking about the panels and everything, the way it was constructed, how panels were done, the reason for breaking borders, different panel shapes, all this kind of stuff. And I've never asked before if that was just something that organically kind of happened because you guys all influenced each other, or if there was a specific reason on why that actually that occurred, because there was a noticeable difference.
It's the rule of thumb for me. I can't speak for others, but for me was try to have something interesting in every page, and or try to have. I think I might have got inspiration from one of those interview tapes that Todd did, and I don't
Yes.
remember. I think he said something to the effect like, always have something interesting in the page and anchor that image with the other panels. So I always took that as a cue, like, okay, when I'm going to lay out a panel, a page, or I need to find something interesting in that page. It's like there was a rule, or we kind of broke it down into 30, 30, 30, or 30%, 30%, 30%. 30% splashes, double page splashes, 30% half splashes, and then 30% talking heads. So it's like, if you have that sort of thrown around in your book,
Yeah.
it has peaks and valleys, and it's just like it. The thing is, the trick is finding the right moments to have the big splashes, having the right moments to have the talking heads, having the right moments to have the half splashes. But not getting too caught up in each panel and trying to make each panel perfect. It's like, have something interesting. But like there's guys like that are super fucking cool with the backgrounds, right? And they love doing that. I'm not that.
Right.
It's like my thing. Like, I'd rather put in draw in a really cool looking figure or a very dynamic character, and then have sort of indication of the background. So whenever I'm doing layouts, I kind of go that route. I'll focus on what in this particular page, where can I extract the best looking figure and work a page around that. But the thing is, then you get too pinup-y, and it's like, I don't mind it being too pinup-y. It's but I've had some creators comment that like my work was too distracting or too pinup-y, and it just wasn't for them. So
Right.
I even see some of when your characters are just kind of standing still. There's still a beautiful gesture to their elegance of them doing a moment. So they're not just standing there like tough guy pose or arms down. They're hands up. They're looking, pointing, twirling their hair. It's very elegant, but so beautiful how you construct out your pages. It's really inspiring. And I'm going to be saying that word a lot tonight, so I apologize.
No worries. The trick is trying to find ways to make to capture that moment. Like, thing is, a lot of times when I'm under the gun, I kind of just fudge it, and figures do sometimes end up being a little static, and that's something that I always have to fight to work it and make it. You have to make it an interesting looking figure. So yeah,
it works whatever you're doing. Sorry, Joey.
No, I was just gonna say, going back to when he was talking about backgrounds, Joe. It's funny because we look at a lot of the old comic art, and one of the things that we kind of point out, especially being comic book artists ourselves, the difference in some of the stuff where it needs to be like, some artists are so heavy background that it's crazy. It's great detail. It's beautiful work, the stuff that they go into. But we've always kind of been more attracted to the artists that do kind of just they reference what the background is. Sometimes the background is disappearing, in the scene, so it's not clouding up the figure work, and it's not clouding up some of the action. And there are times when you just kind of pull away from the background, because you could try to fit background into something, but what's the point? Because the point of the action is on either what the character is doing, or the action in the moment, or whatever. And what you said really resonates, because that's kind of something we've tried to adopt in our own art, because it's just probably something we picked up from watching all you guys draw for years. But I've always I like that better than just the highly detailed background sometimes.
It's the trick whenever you're having a scene, or what I do, I always have an establishing shot, and that shot, either I'll try to do it as detailed as possible and as interesting as possible, or I'll have someone who can actually do a really amazing background and have them do it, so I don't have to do it.
Nice.
The same, yeah, same here. I've talked about it before. I was like, if I could find a really good background artist, man, I'd be on
be
easy
great.
street.
Yeah,
I'd be on
yeah.
easy street. Let's go. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just handle all that. I'll just
Yeah.
do the figure work.
It's whenever it comes to that, I'm not quick as it is, and if I'm doing a really intricate, detailed background, it just takes me forever. So it's like I prefer handing that over to someone like at the moment, like I've been working with Martin Montiel for the
Beautiful
last
stuff. Yeah.
So it's like pretty much whenever you see anything in Mechanica that's super fucking detailed and all the gears and super fine lines, that's all him.
Oh,
Like
nice.
I just take the credit for it,
Hell
Whenever
yeah.
someone
That's-
says, whenever someone says, "Oh, that's amazing," it's like, "Thank you," and that's
Yeah.
it, No, I mean,
I love it. I love it.
But we've managed to get to a really a symbiotic, team that it feels natural now because his style is so different than mine. I'm more of a cartoony, again, imagey guy, and
Right.
his style is very rendery, very has a lot more dark, shadowy, rendery details to it. So it's like whenever we're working, it's trying to find that middle ground so it feels natural.
Sorry, I was just checking. As one of the hosts of the show, I've always got to check to make sure all the streams are working good, and then pay attention to the chat and pay attention to the conversation. So
I don't do anything. I'm just
I was
here. Yeah, this is the best job ever. I get to ask awesome artists awesome questions.
No, I had a question. I was holding on to it. It's something related to the art and the background artists and stuff like that, and I lost it. It'll probably come back to me. By the way, chat, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat, and we'll bring it up when we get a chance. If we do.
Shout
Sean,
out to Kayla, who's in the chat, our co-host of Appreciating Comic Book Art. Love you, girl. I know she wanted to be on this show, but I said no. No, I'm kidding.
Kayla did. She said, can we just talk about how his art appeals to everyone in the shop? Everyone, and I am talking about everyone, loves his work. It has broad appeal. Men buy it, women buy it, etc. I think it's just
beautifully
when you talk about artist styles, there's art is subjective to everybody, right? But I just feel like there's the special stuff is able to kind of just penetrate everybody and just have that attractiveness. And your art is like that, Joe. And it's been that way since we started reading you, reading books that you were drawing, talking about like Darkness, Weapon Zero, Wraithborn, stuff like that was like when I was in the peak of really getting into your body of work at the time. And there was something different about your work in those, it still is, that just kind of draws you in.
It was alive.
Well, it's sex appeal. That was always the intent. It's like I was working under Mark, and he probably draws one of the sexiest male and female characters.
Oh, facts.
And it's
yeah.
And again, my contemporaries, you had Mike and Jay Scott, and at the time, both of them were monsters. They're still monsters. It's like, and what was appealing about their work was the sexy females, and so it's like that's the moment I took over Magdalena, my fan base grew, and my female fan base grew. Because Darkness did have a decent amount of female fans, but Magdalena really took it over. And I realized then that it's like guys like sexy females and women like sexy females. So that was always, it's like, well, that's going to double our, the fan base. So I should probably focus more on doing appealing female characters. Actually, if anything, I was going to say that the one critique that Lady Mechanica that we get quite often is that it's too sexual. And I'm like,
Really?
my attempt was to make it sexy, not sexual, but
Hmm.
it's still like people have issues with the way I draw females. I've gotten a
Yeah.
few that complain about it, and it's like, well, if it's not their thing, it's not their thing.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, you're probably always going to run into that kind of stuff, especially when it comes to the female characters. I mean, the '90s were great, especially for my teenage years.
Mhm.
The
All them
'90s
songs.
were great for that. Like that was one like Witchblade. Lady, not Lady Mechanic.
Lady Death.
Lady Death, thank you. Jeez.
Yeah.
Lady
She-
Death, she was out
Mhm.
there. Exactly. All these bad girl characters, right? These powerful, sexy characters. And the funny thing is, the older we get, like Kayla, our co-host on Tuesdays, she's in the chat. She can tell you, she's a female and she appreciates the sexy drawn women in comics. She appreciates the sexy drawn men. And the thing about
Right.
Top Cow that was so good is that studio, all you guys did a great job of drawing very attractive people. And it's
Right.
like, who wants to see ugly people in comics? Like, put the
Yeah.
attractiveness back in the comics. And that's what kind of Top Cow was.
We tried. We tried to do our best to put those type of comics out.
Well, you guys knocked it out of the park. Kayla's coming through with the questions. We haven't even got to get into origins or anything
We'll
yet,
get there.
but we'll get there. She says, I want to know what it was like to work on Soulfire, if you felt immense pressure. It's a good question, Kayla.
It was obviously I appreciated. What's up, Jewett? It's my bud, Jason Krieger.
Yeah, I would say we got Jay Krager in the house. Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I try to mimic Mike's look. Like it's just like the thing is, it's like when I worked on Soulfire, I did do my best, or tried my best to get my style close to his style, but obviously we had very different aesthetics. So it's
Yeah.
I didn't want to draw it as like just doing like just copying his style. It's like I wanted to
Right.
do my style, but have it still kind of fit. And what was interesting was that the panel or the page that I started was when they go into the Neverland, or is it Everlands? So it's like it was sort of like you're crossing over into a new world, and then I take over. So it's almost like it was just a
Good
fitting
idea.
moment.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
But it just happened that that's as far as Mike. He got right to that point where they're crossing over, and
Mhm.
he didn't draw anything after that. So actually,
Right.
the double page splash that opened that I took over on, that's his layout. There's a few pages
Oh,
that he
okay.
laid out.
Okay.
So I just followed what he laid out and tried to match it as much as I could.
Nice.
It was definitely a great homage to what he established previously, but you finishing off was just a beautiful touch all around. Like showing respect to him, like your bud,
Yeah.
and just it was a great moment just to get the books in hand and finish that chapter of that story. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Was that something you guys had talked about, or just something that ended up happening?
It just happened. He passed away in 2008. I was working at DC. My contract was over. I kind of had I wasn't. It was just bad experience for me, working there. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just I had no interest in signing or re-signing. I was working on Titans, and they took the book away from me. And my whole point of working with DC was, or working for Marvel or DC, my goal was to do a run on a book, because I wanted to build my brand. I wanted to.
Right.
For 2 years, I was just fill-in guy. Actually, I got it felt kind of like a bait and switch. I got approached to take over Batman after Jim, and if I signed, that's how they got me to be interested in that. It's like I was asked, hey, do you want to take over Batman? I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Then
right.
when I signed, they get it was already given to Dustin, and I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? Do you want to take over Superman Batman? It's like, fuck yeah. And it's like I think Ethan was on there at the time.
Okay.
And so I was gonna take over after him, and I started working on a story. And while I was working on that, I guess Ethan had to bail out or something, so I had to jump in and finish off the story that he was working on. But instead of taking over, they jumped me on these other books. So it's like I kind of, it was hopping from Justice League to Supergirl to Detective Comics. So it's just like things at the time I was annoyed by that, and it was actually of all things, I was late night at a con at a bar. I was talking to Michael Golden, and I mentioned this. I was bitching about this. I was like, annoyed by that fact. And his take was like, oh man, you get to draw these cool characters. Like, you get to draw, you're not stuck drawing one book. You get to jump
Right.
around, and I didn't see it like that. Instead of like actually, like that's what he does. When they give him a book, he just draws the fuck out of it.
Right.
And
Right.
and instead I was annoyed because I wanted to my goal again, I wanted to get on a run of a book so I could build a following.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing that pretty much everyone that I know, I think there's only a handful of people that have actually been super successful that haven't actually done Marvel or DC work.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like you need to kind of you need to do something with them, either of those, to build a brand, to build your name, to build your following. And that's the one thing that I only had those 2 year stint, and I felt I didn't do enough, or so yeah uh, yeah.
Well, that was a great 2 years. Let me tell you, like I enjoyed every single one of those issues you did. I was bummed that you left, but I'm like, all right. Then down the road we got Lady Mechanica. I was like, all right, I win as a
Well,
fan.
well, that's the thing. It's like I don't think I would have done Lady Mechanica had I been successful doing mainstream books.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like I see a lot of my contemporaries that are off doing Marvel and DC work, and they're kind of locked there doing that, and that's cool. But it's like my passion was always to create my own things, and that was actually when I said I had a bad experience. It was that. It's like I got very spoiled working for Top Cow, working for Image, because I got to do whatever the fuck I wanted. I got to,
Right.
dictate what I wanted to do with the book. When I'm drawing something, I get to design the stuff, the characters. Like the Magdalena wasn't supposed, like they had a completely different character in mind, and once I jumped on there, I started kind of designing the character the way I wanted to draw her, and eventually it just became a completely different animal, and that was the thing working with DC. It's you're a hired gun, they don't give a fuck about what your opinion is. It's like you're hired to pencil, so just
Right.
pencil and shut up. It's like we got big time writers that know what they're doing, and it's like so they dictate what the story, how the story is going to flow. And anytime I put in my 2 cents, some of the editors would agree with me, or at least that's what they would tell me. But then nothing would happen. I would just get the word back, like, hey, just draw what they wrote, and even though some of the story, well, anyways.
No, I completely. We've talked to Dan Fraga before, and we brought up a fact, like when he left, or when he was done working for Extreme and that whole thing was done, that he seemed to feel like he saw a backlash to the image artists when they tried to cross over to the big Marvel and DCs.
Right.
You know, and we have always speculated that it might have been because there was still after looming effect of the big names leaving Marvel and creating all that big buzz in the 90s, and the fact that the artists got so much power during that period of time that the writers and the editors took that all back and almost kind of squashed that once, Image was kind of dispersing, and the name, the talents that were coming up, we started going out and doing new stuff. And it did seem names like, guys like you, like Dan, even like Brett, even though Brett had a good run at DC, I feel like the talents were held down when in my personal opinion, if it was me, I would have been putting you guys on main books like Batman and Superman, your X-Men, Spider-Man, like whatever company it was. I'd be taking that talent that I thought was top notch and actually really lifting it up. And I feel like you guys kind of almost got pushed down a little bit, as talented and respected as you guys were in the indie scene. I feel like you probably didn't get your due once you got to the big houses.
Well, I think they were a little gun shy to give us. They needed proof that we could pump out a book on a timely manner, and that
True.
was the thing. Is at the time we were very notorious for being late with our books. I mean, it's like, and that was a major black mark on Image artists. It's like, oh, they're good, but they're not reliable.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, again, like every guy that I think Mike's the only guy that jumped over and immediately got a big book. Immediately got Supergirl, and they started Superman, Batman for him, but he was a monster with Fathom at the time. So it's like, but Finch, Billy Tan, I know that once they jumped on, they had to basically prove themselves. They put them on these, mini projects, mini series or one shots to test them out. And then they got the big books, and that's, again, like, when I got offered Batman, I was like, fuck yeah. Like,
Right.
I thought I don't have to prove myself. They already know what I got. But once I got there, it's like, no, you're going to do this fill in and that fill in and that fill in. And I didn't get anything till Titans. And then that kind of got all weird. So.
Did you find that it took so long to draw books? Because you guys were doing a lot of highly detailed books over Image or whatever people, and that's kind of the reputation that Image had. Like growing up, Image had the best artists for the most part. That doesn't put any, that's no shade to any of the Marvel or DC guys at the time, but there's just something, it was more detailed, it was more just impressive to look at, Was that contributed to maybe some of the slower production, or was that, because if you look at a monthly guy, probably drawing a little bit looser, right? Working with an inker that can tighten everything up and they can meet those deadlines, but they might not necessarily be hitting that immense detail that you guys were doing in your books.
There was some of that. Yeah. It's like, we were just slacking off, just, parting, not doing our work because I know, I personally had that attitude. It's kind of like, well, if I don't do it, who are you going to get?
Right.
Like, it's just like, if Mike doesn't do Witchblade, who are you going to get to fill in? Like who? It's like, who's going to top Mike? It was just one of those things where it's like, there was an attitude about like, yeah, well, it's like, you're not buying the book because of the character. The character is a inner, it's symbiotically connected to the artist. It's like, we had, well, that's the way I felt. It's kind of like, yeah, sure, you can get someone else, but it's not going to be as good as what we're putting out, but it's like it was the wrong attitude. It's just I think that there was one quote that I think it's attributed to Travis Charest, that it's like the thing is, I remember someone bringing it up at the studio, but I don't know if he actually said it himself, that people aren't going to remember how long it took you to do something. They're just going to know how good it looks. You know, like when you see the
There's
art,
truth in that.
Yeah.
when you see the art, you're just like, you know, no one's going to know that it's like, oh, it took them 3 months or 4 months or whatever. If
Yeah.
anything, there was a moment in when Aaron Weisenfeld was working on Team 7, and everyone in the studio was pretty much gaga over it. Like they were just like, look at this amazing piece of art. And it's like, and my take was like, everybody was like, how do you do this? How do you do this? And it's like, well, if you take 3 months on one book, you probably can do that as well. It's like, and it's like, no one's paying attention that it's taking, you know, like, it was taking forever to get those books out. But again, I personally don't know how long it actually took Aaron to draw those, but, you know, we were looking at the timeline at the time, you know, like, well, it took him this long to put this book out, and then it took him this long to get book 2 out. So you do the math, you know, but it was beautifully put together, you know, and, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, we tried to make, the best aesthetically pleasing book that we could, you know, but sometimes we kind of slacked off. You know, we're in our 20s and we're working right there on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, and there's parties every weekend, and we're right by the beach, and there's clubs, and it's just,
Well,
you know, things happen.
Would have done the same thing.
yeah. I was yeah, I definitely understand that, like, you know, artists or the character being attached to the artist, because I absolutely, as a fan of the comic book art, I thought the same thing too. Like, I follow the artists all around, not so much characters. If a superstar artist was on a book, I was buying the book. It didn't matter if the character was, you know, Spawn or Witchblade or whatever. It didn't matter. And if they jumped off and the guy that came, or the guy or gal that came after them, wasn't up to that kind of style that I appreciated, I usually left the book too. And so, but to me, that's just the way that I operate, and that's how I look at comics. And that's, you know, I'm always a guy that's going to follow the artist more than the story, more than the characters. So I think a lot of that stuff, the lateness of books never bothered me much, because I don't think I ever really thought about it, because I was just waiting for the next time I could look at some beautiful art. But I do understand how the majority of regular normie comic book readers are just enjoying it for the overall experience of what a comic book is. Yeah, I understand how that kind of could have hurt sales, hurt, you know, reputations, with books being, you know, out so late and everything. So I get both points of view of it, you know.
No, it's valid. You know, like, when I realized that people were, you know, kind of pegging us all as these, you know, unreliable artists, it did hurt, you know, it did hurt to some extent, you know.
Yeah.
But
Oh, for sure.
yeah, my goal, again, when I'm doing a book, it's always, I wanted to give the audience the same feeling I got in the late 80s, early 90s. Like, I wanted that feeling that when I went to a comic shop and I got, you know, I didn't know what was out. I'm just walking there and I see an X-Men, or I see a Spawn, not a Spawn, a Spider-Man, or, you know, you just, the books were just so pleasing to see. You know, it was just this it was just I don't know if I can describe how intense that feeling was when you walk in and just like, holy shit, what is this? And you just flip through the pages and it's just like, wow, look at this. Like, I want someone to be in awe of that, and that was my goal at the time, to do that type of art. And I still try to do it, but it's, you know, it's like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, you know.
Well, I mean,
Well, you did that for me when I discovered Weapon Zero. I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
like, give me more of this. Did you learn? Did you take anything away from working with Walt Simonson, working on Weapon Zero?
That's
did
the
he
thing that I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was very cocky, very arrogant.
Mhm.
I would try to, say, hey, what about this? Well, like interject with my ideas and stuff. And it's like, it isn't until later on that I'm like, holy shit, I was working with Walt. Like I had his number. I could just reach out and hit him up and say, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And he was so easy to, what do you call it? Uh, he would just basically placate to my bullshit. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that,
Oh,
but yeah, I mean, it's yeah, like I wish I was more aware of that at the time. I was uh yeah, it just, I had a different mindset back then, 22, 23, thinking that I'm, a God's gift to art. It's
Right.
just it's a different mind, like I had that attitude, I had that mindset, and I didn't understand where I really fit in the hierarchy of art at the time.
yeah. I mean, I can certainly understand that, especially in the 90s when you had guys like, examples, you had guys like Rob Liefeld coming up so young, right? And just
Mhm.
hitting that popularity and then just, taking over and then just having all that success at a young age. I got to imagine that that had to be some kind of inspiration for young artists that were coming up that behind him that were like, hey, I'm similar age, I've got this talent, I could take over the industry as well. I could definitely
Right.
see that playing into it, in that age of superstar artists.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I went to San Diego Comic-Con 92 to look for work, they had a whole area blocked off, the image area, because they were so popular and the lines were so long that it's like it was they needed to block it off, to keep the overflow of fans, or to keep the fans away from that area.
That's I think some people might forget because we've been so long removed now from the 90s, just how impactful the superstar artist was at that period of time. Because yeah, there are very talented artists today, don't get me wrong, but there are no big names out there that just are a superstar anymore for whatever
Right.
reason, but back in the 90s there was a magic to it when you came to like Todd and Jim and all those guys, especially when Image started. There was like this crazy excitement of this brand new thing happening, new characters. There was new, just energy injected all over the place. And you started looking at these guys, they were absolutely rock stars. They were the superstar artists of the 90s. It was a special time. I think people don't really remember that as much as when you live through it. Just us
Right.
being fans living through it and just being the ones that were excited about it. It was yeah, it was probably better than anything going seeing concerts or anything like that. You get a chance
It
to see
was,
your artists, see the work. Beautiful stuff. I
yeah,
miss it.
yeah, I mean, that's it, went to San Diego Comic-Con 93 and got hired, and it's I got 3 hits, Wildstorm, Top Cow, and DC. And I
Wow.
was and from what I'm told, the only reason I ended up at Top Cow was because Mark saw me first. So it's like
Oh,
so both
nice.
Wildstorm and like someone told me that, yeah, that both of them had my submissions, and it's like, well, I saw them first, so I get dibs.
Wow.
But it's like I was working at, I moved over to Mira Mesa. That's where Homage Studios was at. And
Mhm.
I got a phone call like a month after from DC, from Denny O'Neil, and he offered me Batman, or a Batman
Wow.
book. But at the time, I was like, I'm where I want to be. I'm working at a studio where I got Mark Silvestri in one corner, got Jim Lee in the
Yeah.
other. You got Scott Williams, you got Will Spertasio, who would walk in and out. You got, J. Scott Campbell, Brett Booth. You got Travis Charest. It's like basically I was surrounded by some of the best talent in the industry at that time, and I was like, there's no other place that I'd rather be than there. And it's like so it was nice that I they wanted me to do a book for them, or a Batman book, but it was like that was my mecca. That's where I would I was exactly where I wanted to be. So
I was just gonna say, I don't think anybody could blame you at that point either. I mean, at that point in the industry, Image was where it was hot. You know, you had the biggest name artists leave and create their company, and then bringing in all these younger and new names that people hadn't maybe seen as much. And the way you describe it, I mean, that's amazing. When I just think about it, and just thinking about it from your position, yeah, like who would want to leave that? You know, when you're being tutored by guys like Lee and Silvestri and all them, and you're seeing all the work, and the inspiration must have been just off the charts.
there was an energy about it. There was it's just like I remember that time, like there was just this creative energy in that little room. It's just I felt like we were all, at least I was feeding off of everyone around. It's just you're sitting there and someone's like you could see a page being created out of nothing. And
so cool.
so that was actually the one thing that that whatchamacallit that felt that it's basically it's like I learned the tricks, like in when you go to a magic show, you want to be awed. The awe went away and it got replaced with something else, because it's like I was seeing how the turkey was cooked. I saw how the sausage was made. It's like before, when you look at a page, you're like, how did this person create this magic? How did they do this? But when you're watching them break it down, it's like, oh, okay. So you're finding all the little shortcuts, and it's not as fantastic when you see it finished, because you saw the process. So that was the one thing that I wish I was still there. It's still amazing to watch someone create, but it wasn't as mysterious.
Yeah, the wizard is revealing his curtain, and you're like, oh, it's an old guy,
right?
Yeah, I could definitely see it from that point of view. But still, like, what a great way to learn, because I'm a very visual learner. Like, it wasn't until YouTube and stuff came around that I was really able to kind of see, or just that Gnome series with like Finch and Stephen Platt and all them, that would actually videotape process, and you could see how someone drew things, that things started to click in my mind. Like, up to that point, I was just drawing in a natural way. I was seeing what was being done in comics. I was trying to imitate it. No real reason understanding why, but actually seeing it and being taught it, I advanced a lot faster. I just think of you guys in that environment, learning from some of the best. Like, to me, that just blows my mind, of being able to just be there and see, whatever book being created as it was creating. Remember those pages, having one of those guys come over or whatever and work with you on something, and just, I mean, what an amazing time. I think it's one of the things I kind of miss about the industry, where everybody's now like freelancers, you work from home and whatnot. And I understand the comfortability of that, but for like a younger person coming up in the industry back then, I feel like it was much more nurturing of the talents and bringing the best out of the artists at the time.
Yeah, I felt that competition really inspired and brought out the best out of everyone, because it's like you're trying to kick each other's ass. So,
Exactly.
you want to be better than the next person. And it's like, you see a cover come in, you see, some pages, and it's like, they're so fantastic. And you're like, I need to kick this guy's ass. I need to be better than them. And it pushes you to get better. It's like, sometimes, I've tried doing that now, like looking at some of the talent that's out there and just saying, okay, I need to kick this person's ass, but it's not as the fire and drive isn't as intense as it was back then.
Right.
So it's just like yeah, but I mean definitely very blessed that I got an opportunity to work with those guys there. Like my friend Jason Krager, he brought up Nick Manabet. And
Yes.
that, like I remember seeing his work before I got hired and going like, how is this person capable of doing this? And then when I found out he was 2 years younger than me, it pissed me off.
Right.
I was so annoyed by that. I was just like, that's not fair. How is this guy so friggin' amazing and he's 2 years younger than me? And it's just like yeah, it's just it was so inspiring to see that guy work.
Oh, I can imagine. I can, and I think that's when we look at the indie scene right now as being creators ourselves, we kind of, that's all you can really do is have friendly competitions with everybody, and I try to look at it, I look at some of the best guys in the indie scene that I really like and I follow their work, and every time they put out something really fantastic, it pisses me off in a good way, right? And we have a saying here on the show where we look at some of the stuff and it makes us sick. Like,
Yeah, it
we are
makes us
sick
sick.
because we see it, but it's a good way because it's so good and it inspires you and it makes you naturally want to start doing better. Like you want to come out, you're like, all right, my next piece, I need to be better, at least in my own mind,
Yeah.
need to be better than that guy, and
Right.
it raises everybody up. And I think that was what was great about the 90s is because of the amount of competition, not only within the image houses and everything and the image companies, but also within the industry itself. Marvel had to start doing better. DC had to start doing better. You had, better artists, climbing the ladders and doing things, better storylines and all this kind of stuff. It was such a different decade in the 90s. I talk about it all the time on the channel and people probably get sick of it, but it really was.
Too bad.
It was a
Yeah.
different kind of energy and time when it came to entertainment in general, but the comic industry was so healthy because of that competition. And I don't know if we have that much anymore, but I do like the indie scene. I do like a lot of stuff the guys are now doing with crowdfundings and all that kind of stuff because I feel like that's kind of where the energy is right now in the industry is the indie scene.
It's a thing I felt like they were doing something different. Like we were trying to do something that you hadn't seen before. Like now it's like I mean, someone does their take on Batman, someone does their take on Superman, someone does their take on Spider-Man, but it's like I want to see someone create the new Spider-Man, create the
Right.
new Batman, and have that same excitement that yeah, it's just like I want to see more of that. I want to see what these top creators what they can bring to the, bring out the yeah, again, I want to see more creative stuff out there, more better IPs, cooler IPs, exciting IPs,
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what's missing right now because that was an era where there was new. It was just an era of new. I mean, when you think of all the new books, all the new characters that were being created, and a lot of, yeah, sure, there were misses along the way, but a lot of them were all hits. And you look at today's age, it's not, there's not that new, like you said. It's DC, it's Marvel. Yeah, Image is still doing there. Todd is still doing his thing with his studio, keeping it strong. A lot of good talent in the industry, but there's not a lot of new stuff coming on and then absolutely taking over or catching fire or getting pushed, and it's just kind of
Right.
the same old thing. You're right. It's, I think that's the thing I miss the most. It's just the new. So maybe
Well,
that'll
it's
come back at some point. I don't know.
I mean, like people give Rob a lot of shit, and it's like that guy brought excitement back into the
Yeah.
industry. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like I remember when New Mutants were hit, and it's like it started building and building, and it's just like there was just something fresh and unique about it. I don't see anybody out there like that. Like, yeah, the thing is, there's a lot of really good draftsmen, really good, artists that draw the fuck out of something, but it's not cool. Like that was the thing that we always talked about, the cool factor or the
Yeah.
wow factor that a lot of these artists don't have. Like they don't,
True.
it just doesn't have that energy behind it. It's like yeah, it's just having that excitement when you but then maybe I'm wrong. Because I'm not as connected to the industry as I used to be. It's like I don't go to the comic shop every month. I don't pay attention to what's out. It's just every now and then I'll hear a new something interesting, like, oh, go check it out. But I don't have that Jones for it. I don't have that. I'm not. I don't have that fix. And that's a
Yeah.
thing back then, the late '80s, early '90s. I had a fix. I needed that fix. I needed to go and what's out this week? Oh shit, it's a new X-Men. Oh shit, it's a new X Factor. Oh shit, Wolverine. It's there's some excitement to going to the shop and seeing the new comic that gave you that feeling, that excitement to go to the shop.
Yeah, I think that's why there's a lot of excitement in the indie scene. The only thing that is a drawback of the indie scene is a lot of the books take longer to get out when you're talking about like crowdfunders or stuff like that. Like some people can do indie books and get their books in the shops, if you have the ability to do so. But you look at guys like, Kenneth Roquefort with his Groken book.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a book that comes out and it's a new character and the art is amazing. It's something that it gets, when you're reading it, it gives you those feels, that excitement, that it pulls you and immerses you into the art,
Yeah. Kenneth is a fucking monster.
Yeah.
He's just
He's
like
a beast.
yeah, he's one of my top favorite comic book artists working right now. He just has a style that's so unique and beautiful and cool.
Yeah. 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 And I think I wish that we still had that in the mainstream, but we don't, if for whatever reason, like you said, there's no artists out there. And there's a lot of artists that I do think are very talented. There's a few artists that I follow. But you're right. There's just nothing, when those guys break off and they kind of start doing their own thing, I get more excited. Like we had VK Marion on the other day, and he's doing his own fantasy book now through crowdfunding, and I'm excited for that, because it looks good and it's something new from a really talented guy.
Yeah, I did a cover for that.
Yeah, yes, you did. Yep. Yeah, we were actually covering it when he was on the show. We went through his entire Kickstarter.
No, yeah, he's a really talented artist, and one of the new breeds, and I think, yeah, I see great things with him. With the right project, and again, he's very talented and very creative. So I look forward to seeing his career flourish.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
He was a cool dude too. We enjoyed talking with him about it.
And shout out to Mark Roslin and everything that they're doing over in Aspen. Those guys are amazing. Love what Aspen does. Yeah, great company.
I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Lee said comics are not about entertainment anymore. It's more about what people believe in nowadays. I think there was a freedom in comics that has gotten lost for whatever reason. I think the reason's out there, but I think I like the indie scene because, guys like you, Joe, or, anybody that's venturing in and making their own book, you're putting your influences, your passions, what you want to see out of a comic book is what you're putting into it. And you see that, you feel it when you read it. And I think that's what is exciting about the indie scene is you can feel that energy. And it's almost just like a glimpse of, what it was like when we were younger, when the 90s were around, or just that excitement when a new indie book drops.
It's like sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, go. I apologize for cutting you.
No, I was going to say that at times I'm a little afraid that it's like that. The style that I'm doing is not. It's basically like, books that were drawn in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Right.
They look. So it's like sometimes feel like, am I stuck in that? Because the thing is that I'm going to draw them in the 90s style. That's
Right.
my style. But I don't know if that's become a like like a thing where it's like, oh, this person's drawing like it, back in the olden days, and
Yeah.
cool anymore. It lacks depth, or it's not, like they have new ways of telling the story that, I'm still following my shortcuts, and like I still have an approach to my book that probably isn't the way they're doing it now.
But I think that's a sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sean, because I know you got
No
something to say,
worries.
but I just want to play off of that just for a second. But I think that's what's missing, with the art today,
Yeah.
is that like, yeah, so because my style it comes from the 90s, it was influenced with the 90s, so a lot of my style is very 90s, and when people see it, a lot of people have said, hey dude, I love your 90s style and stuff like that. It's not necessarily like I'm trying to capture that, it's just that's where I come from. But there became a stigma for some odd reason in a
Yeah.
certain part of the last, I don't know, 15 or so years, maybe 20 years, a stigma about the 90s art. But I think that's starting to wear off, because I really do think that people are seeing uh newer guys come up like Netho Diaz and VK Marion and people in the indie scene, and they're like, this is comic book art. This is what reminds me of comic book art, why it was so good. And I think a lot of
Right.
newer art is kind of boring because they don't go that extra mile like they used to, or like you guys do.
Well, it's when you were talking earlier about, the layouts and stuff. It's like that was the issue that I had with the early 2000s. Everybody was drawing the, 5-panel page, all, letter, like they thought they were doing a fucking movie. They forgot
Right.
that they're doing a comic book. Comic book, comic books have a different approach. If you want to do a movie, do the fucking movie. Don't, you know, uh, but when you're approaching with comic books, you can do more things. You can break the characters out of the panel, you can bring them out, you can move the panels around. It's like you want to make it as visually interesting as possible, you want to make it as cool as
Yeah.
possible, you want to give that a different experience to the person. You want to do it, you want to do something that you can't do in movies. It's like and that's the thing with there's so many ways of approaching storytelling, and a lot of and back then, everything was so static, so stagnant, and that's the thing that I felt was, that's when the writers took over. And the thing is, again,
Right.
obviously it's like with Image, we got the whole all style, no substance.
Right.
It's and and I think even now sometimes, when people pick up our book, Mechanica, a lot of times they go in with that mindset. It's just a stupid TNA
Mhm.
book, and there's nothing behind it. And they're actually we've gotten a lot of surprises. People have been pleasantly surprised that there's actually a story there.
Right.
But yeah, but it's I want people to have fun when they're doing a comic. Have fun, bring
That's
out,
it.
make it exciting, make it cool, kick ass.
Yeah, yep, that is absolutely. We say it all the time, right, Sean? I was like, I'm very easily pleased. Like, give me something cool, entertain me
Right.
for a little bit, let me get lost in the beauty of the art. That's all I'm really looking for. Like, I don't need Shakespeare. Yeah, like, as a reader, having a good story is fun, but as a guy that's just appreciating the art, I just want to get lost in just the dynamic of the art. And I think one thing we're talking about, like with maybe modern art, where it kind of is getting a little bit more stiff, especially in the storytelling, but just in general, it's like there was a way to depict a hero, the heroic stance, how you
Mm.
could pose a character, and it just it oozed off the page of that pose, the power pose, the heroic
Right.
pose, you know, and that's how you kind of differentiate the characters from like ordinary people. And now like the hyper realism kind of came into comics over the last, I don't know how many years, where people want to just be like, you know, I like exaggerated proportions. You know, I don't mind if shoulders are a little bit wide, or, you know, like tall, your characters are more than the 7 feet tall, your 7 head talls or whatever. You know, I like
Right.
the dynamics of that more than seeing a normal looking Superman that looks like me. You know, it's just like, I
Yeah.
don't want to see me in comics. You know, I want to see,
He's not that
Right,
super.
yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, it's like people forget that, again, you're drawing a fantasy. We're
Yeah.
we're
Right.
drawing. We're not like a lot of times when people attack how comic book females are depicted. It's like, do you see how male characters are depicted?
Yeah.
It's like
Thank you.
they
Yes.
they they don't exist like that. You know, you don't see an 8 foot tall super muscular individual like that. And it's just
Yep.
like, these are just exaggerated effects to create uber characters, uber people that don't exist. They we're just trying to make them as dynamic and as interesting as possible. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to draw people that look like, the same, normal proportions, that's your bag, cool. But it's
Right.
like we want to draw characters that are super interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's why I think that this kind of art style that has been developed, that we all kind of dip our toes into with our own styles, our own unique styles, and talent that comes out of it, I still think is probably the stuff that's going to get the most eyes. Because when people see good art, I'm sorry, it's comic books, right? Art sells the comic books. I think there's just a natural feeling when you see something that just catches your eye because it's just so beautifully drawn, or it looks cool, or whatever. Like that, like that will always be in demand, whether it's more in the indie scene, I don't know, but that will always be in demand and will always bring people to your book. Like Lady Mechanica, when you look at it, just a cover that you put out or something like that, like it pulls you in because you instantly want to be like, damn, like that's really fucking good, like I want to read it.
That's the goal with a cover. That's always
Yeah.
bring them in. You bringing them in with the art, and you keep them coming with the story.
Hey, I got a question. Maybe about a year or two ago on Instagram, you showed like your samples from what you showed off to like
Yeah, that was
when you're
really
going
cool.
around. There were some original characters that you had created yourself. Do you still
Yep.
fuck around with them, like on the side, like maybe one day bring them back for like a
No.
one shot or just something? Because they were dope.
I mean, no, like
Damn.
I mean, there. Well, the thing is, actually, the character of Tyson Stone from Weapon Zero, the
Okay.
design for that character was my original design was a character called Parrish, which was kind of like an offshoot of Dutch and Church and Chapel.
Mhm.
It's like I liked. Again, I was a big fan of Extreme and fan of
Right.
early Image stuff. Yeah, Panda Girl too. And I was drawing that character when I was working at Top Cow. I was drawing it as a pinup, just looking around. Mark came by. He goes, "What's that?" I go, "Oh, that's my character. Yeah, that's my creator on. Oh, that's character I did. He's cool. We can put him in Weapon Zero. We can put him in the book." And I was like, okay, I don't know anything any better, but it's like, so that was, if you see there's an image, and I've posted a few times, it's this character, they colored him all purple. Well, but it was the first promotional image for Weapon Zero was that drawing that I did. So it's like I do have, so yeah, it's like a lot of those characters. I'm using some of the names and some of the concepts, but not necessarily the visuals,
Right.
because it's like I don't feel they fit. it's aesthetically they're not. I don't like them,
Right.
Very cool.
Joe, I know you're dealing with, coming off of sickness, and I know you're, I don't want to keep you too long with that cough or anything. But
Oh,
Sean,
no
did you?
worries, man.
Oh, okay, you're doing all right. All right. I didn't want to.
All right.
I didn't want to like trap you here and be like, oh, he's,
No,
Okay.
it's
But,
up to you guys. It's like if you can bear with it, I don't care.
I'm fine with it. We can go. We can
Are
definitely
you
go a little
kidding
bit
me?
longer.
If I had the choice to cure my diabetes and then sit here, I would still have the diabetes. Like this is like we've been looking forward to this day for a while. So we got questions.
Yeah, Sean, if you got a couple more questions, go and shoot. Though I think we'll go for another like 15 minutes, and then we'll call it good.
All right. So actually, here this is different. If you could adapt any movie film to a comic, what would it be? Genre, past, present, whatever. Like, what's a movie be like? Oh, I would draw the fuck out of that as a comic.
Well, actually, not necessarily because I could draw the fuck out of it. It's just I'd be interested to do Natural Born Killers the way Tarantino actually wrote it, because it's
okay.
Like I saw that the script is out there, and it's like, okay, that would be kind of fun to follow his actual script and do a proper version of it.
That'd be interesting.
But
I know they definitely changed that movie up quite a bit from the original script.
Mhm.
I don't know
Right.
much more than that, but I definitely have read that before.
But I mean, as far as I can't think of anything that I'm like, fuck, I'd really love to draw that as a comic book. The thing is that, I have too many creator-owned stories that I actually want to get off the ground.
Sure.
Yes, I agree. And by the way, shout out to Timescales. Got member of the channel Carbon Dioxide's in the house. Member of the channel Sheldon Martin's here as well. Good to see you guys. I know Kayla. I'm gonna get this up here because she did ask this a little earlier. So let's throw it up here. She says, "I'd like to know what his favorite comic story is and why. How did it inspire him?" So maybe not something that you did, but something that, yeah.
Oh, not that I did. Well, the thing is, I always bring. There's two books that pretty much made me want to get into comics, and that was G.I. Joe 2021,
right,
with the silent interlude, and G.I. Joe Yearbook #2 that Michael Golden did.
Oh, nice.
It's like
yeah.
Beautiful book.
I remember being 15, getting that book and going through every page and just being in awe of this man's talent. And it just, I remember then going like, I don't know what this is, but this is what I want to do. This is something that I really want to get into. But I didn't, at the time I didn't know how to go about, approaching how to get in the business. Luckily, go ahead.
I was just, you might have been leading there anyway, but I was going to say, when was it that you kind of learned about the, going to cons, showing your work, aspect of breaking in?
I mean, I went to, I grew up in LA, so there was a con there, and I went there, but it was summer of '93 when all the Valiant, Image, Marvel, everybody was looking for new talent,
right?
And it's like there were big open calls. If you looked in the books, they always had like send your submissions here, and that whole summer, I think it was even before that, I was just sending submissions and getting rejections. Like I got rejected by Valiant, Extreme, DC. I was telling some friends that it's like I remember getting my Extreme rejection letter, had a little bad rock on the corner and stuff, and
really?
but I didn't keep any of that.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least I haven't found it. Maybe I have it hidden somewhere in my old stuff. But then it's like I decided Comic-Con was coming up, so I prepped for Comic-Con. And those submissions that I posted, most of them were in there. It's just I took this. I still have the suitcase, or it's like just full of these very thick artboard and loose paper. Basically, I didn't have the proper uh, dimensions for a comic art. I just
Right.
kind of would buy whatever was cheap at the store, and and draw on that. And so that's I got my submissions and decided to go to Comic Con, to San Diego Comic Con, and show my wares, and that's what I did.
I always get so excited hearing those stories because when
Yeah.
I was a kid, reading stories of the artists that when I'd be into, like at the time, J. Scott Campbell or Brett Booth or any of the guys that's what they did. They went to the conventions and showed their work. I tried that too when I was younger. It was kind of in the early 2000s, so it wasn't the same kind of, people weren't really looking for the talent at that time. But I think it's just the coolest way to get a job, to go to a convention, show your work off, get signed, and then get brought in, and boom, there you go. You have a chance at that point, and it's
Yeah.
on you now to make it or not by your work ethic or just your talent level. And so I love hearing those stories. I don't know why. It just makes me feel good. I'm like, yeah, that's the way
No,
to
it's
do
awesome.
it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
I
it's
know.
it's probably one of the biggest moments, best moments in my life was getting well, the thing is getting showing work and getting people like a positive reaction to it. But
Yeah.
I didn't get the call until a month or so later, because it's like at the time I showed my work to Mark, and what do you call it? Because it was a big hectic, a lot of going on. He asked me to send submissions that week. He just said, "Here, just send me some more stuff, some more updated stuff, in the next week or so, and we'll talk." It
Yeah.
took me a month, because I actually worked for a month. I worked on new submissions for him, specifically for him,
Mhm.
Wow.
because I wanted to impress him. So I didn't send anything for a month. I sent it, and a few days later, I got the call. And when I got the call, if I was interested in moving to Mira Mesa to join the studio, I was just again, it's like for me, again, I was working at a silk screening, little mom and pop silk screening shop, and getting that call to work with one of the best artists in the industry at Image Comics was
Right.
just life changing. So uh, it it really changed my life. So I don't think I'd
What's
be here. Go ahead.
what's some advice that like Mark or even Jim or Wills have given you from back then that you still hold to this day? That you're like, oh, all right, like it's still
Well,
there.
Wills was never at the studio. He would just
Mhm.
walk in occasionally. I was just he would walk in, just kind of hang out for a bit, and then take off. He didn't work at the studio. Uh, as far as Mark, it's like just kick ass.
Cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
No, I mean, I think one of the Jim actually one of the when we asked him, like in the studio, like what's the same question, like well what would you say to artists, what do we need to uh uh do our best work, and he said you have to be angry.
Hmm.
What I took
Okay.
was you have to be passionate, you have to be driven, you have to have that fire in you. But it's like maybe I don't know if that actually meant he needs to be angry himself, but for me, I took that because it's
Interesting.
like it's definitely something that I miss. I miss that passion, that drive, that at that time I wanted to be number one. I wanted to fucking destroy. I wanted
Right.
to take over. Like, my goal was to be the best in the industry. But I allowed things to get in the way. I compromised a few things with my art, with the direction that I was going in. When I broke in, I had a style that I wanted to nurture and develop, but working there, I felt I needed to um, do the house style,
Oh, okay.
like, and that was very difficult because that wasn't me. My combination, like my guy is Todd McFarlane, like,
Mhm.
but I wanted to do Todd with better anatomy, with more dynamic. One can't be more dynamic than him, but more of a Will's Jim Mark type anatomy, but with the Todd McFarlane rendering, and
Right.
it's like, but the house style was this very crosshatchy stuff that I just couldn't master. It was just so difficult for me, but I felt I needed to go that route, and that was a struggle. And I feel like, had I gone the other way, I was a lot more comfortable with that style. I feel like I would have been a different animal, different artistic animal, and
Yeah.
so I felt I compromised a few more, on a few
Interesting.
other. But yeah, it's like I miss that monster that was there back then, because the confidence and the drive was just, I felt unstoppable until I stopped
Right.
myself, until I compromised, and that's where I
Interesting.
feel I derailed, my artistic development.
What's what's interesting about that is that kind of makes me think of I've seen Silvestri say before that the stuff he did in the 90s was more him trying to kind of do the Jim Lee style that was very popular, and that when he
Right.
finally started to break out and do more of his own kind of personal style, you saw that kind of happening in the late 90s and until today. And you see the stuff
Yeah,
he's doing today.
yeah,
It
it's
makes a lot
beautiful.
of sense. At the time, he saw what was selling and he could draw that, and he's like, I'm going to do a little bit more of like my version of Jim Lee, but it's not his favorite work to look back at because it wasn't, maybe he compromised a little bit at that
Well,
point, and then he started doing what he wanted to do.
it's interesting because there's an era, I think, when Jim was doing Fantastic Four, where you can definitely see there's an influence. There's a J. Scott Campbell influence,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it's like,
Oh, yeah.
and I feel like, he saw that, and it's like, so he tried going that route, but it's like, it's not my favorite style. Like,
Right.
it's just like, actually my favorite Jim style is Uncanny X-Men. I once he got into X-Men, it's that crosshatchy stuff just wasn't for me. I love the
Gotcha.
beefy, meaty, chunky black,
Yeah.
thicker shadows. It just but I mean, every artist goes through that. Every artist goes through, and they have their own eras that, it's like Michael Golden, Art Adams, Travis, all these guys. They always have a sweet spot for me. That's like, oh, I wish they stayed in that era, because that's my
Right.
favorite.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And but as artists, we always change and morph, and sometimes, it's because we want to go in a different direction artistically, and sometimes it's because we're lazy, and it's easier to just fall on your go-tos. And
Mhm.
I'm guilty of that. A lot of times it's like, I'm kind of sick of drawing the same face. I'm sick of
Right.
drawing that same shot, but it gets a story across. So, okay, let's keep going with it,
Yeah. By the way, shout out to we have 109 people watching over on X, so shout out to the Xites. 25 people here in the chat on YouTube. First night streaming on Instagram. I think we've had like one or two people over there, but hopefully
Well,
that will
thank
grow.
you.
But shout out to anybody that's checking us out
Yeah.
on Instagram. It's the first thing.
Wow,
We just tried it. Like,
Yeah.
see how it
Cool.
works. If
see,
wherever you're watching though, I was just gonna say, wherever you're watching, though, if you get a chance, go to the YouTube channel, like the page, subscribe to the page, help the page grow. But we're gonna try to push out and try to reach as many people as possible on the different platforms.
So X is the most successful one.
Right now, it is. Yeah,
Right now it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been kind of streaming's weird. Like views go up and down depending on who you're streaming against. All this kind of stuff. I think X is still kind of new. I think people are still kind of getting into streaming on it, and I think the more is streaming, the more we kind of start picking up more of an audience over there, which is great. So we're just trying to reach all the different platforms right now that we can reach, and just get fun content out there and talk comic books and comic book art as much as we can.
And this is a 180. Like 4 years ago is when both Joe and I kind of started this, and we used to stream off of Facebook. So we'd have like our Aunt Petunia's and Cousin Larry's comments, and we're like, "Thanks for being here," but like, ask our questions, like not like how like our family's doing, So this is still cool.
And to answer what CB Smallwood, yes.
Yeah. So he asks, what are you doing today? Are you putting more McFarlane
Yes.
in your work, or where's your head at? Yeah, influence and approach. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Chuck,
like actually it's what was it? I'm not. The thing is, it's like I've thought about that. It's just I kind of just do shit, and it's difficult for me to teach it. It's like when I look at Finch's stuff, when he posts that, it's like he's really a really good technical artist. He knows how the fundamentals. He knows how to break it down. It's like I fudge a lot of stuff. I used to bring up the fact that when people asked Magdalena, oh, that's so cool. What you put all this stuff, all this detail. And it's like, yeah, because I'm trying to hide my bad anatomy. It's like
right.
you see why she's got these big fucking knee pads? It's to hide the fact that I couldn't draw knees. It's like she's got these big shoulder pads because I can't draw shoulders. So it's just I would just design a character that would cover up all the shortcomings. So it's just what is it? Again, going back to Todd, if it looks like a tree, it's a tree. That's the thing. It's like just draw it good enough that you can get away with it. It's like you don't worry too much about it. It's just like sometimes again when I'm drawing backgrounds, if I'm drawing a background, I just kind of fudge the vanishing points.
Right.
As long as it kind of looks right, that's right. No one's gonna sit there and measure to see if it's actually straight and properly.
Yes. That's what I've been saying that for a long time now. Like there are some people that just get too obsessed with art, like the perfect perspective and the perfect this and the perfect that. And sometimes I'm like, just give me something that looks cool.
Right.
And my eye will accept it for what it is, right? We don't need the perfect vanishing point for backgrounds and stuff. Like I liked the little quote unquote cheats that were done like in the 90s or whatever people want to call it. But to me, it looks good. To me, I feel like it's done on a purpose because you get more of the attention on the point of the scene,
Right.
and it just, I don't know. I dig it. I don't get so much drawn into like, oh, this perspective is off here a little bit, or this is here. Like if it's horrible, I understand that. But if it's slightly off, I don't care.
If it looks cool, people will forgive you.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what is it? That form over function. Like,
right.
A lot of times it's like that doesn't make sense. It's like, what doesn't make sense? Well, that buckle or wooden. It's like, does it look cool? It's like, yeah. Well, then who cares?
Yep.
Right.
I think that's just
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
It's like
just the
what Rob Liefeld
mentality.
says. The school of cool.
Yeah, the school of cool.
You know?
No,
Yeah.
it's just like that's the goal, is just to make something visually aesthetically pleasing
Yes.
and interesting. And that's, as an artist, that's our job, is to make it as visually interesting as possible.
Yeah, and I'll end the conversation on that so we can let you go. But yeah, like that's the point of it all to me, is just the cool factor, make it look awesome, make it look fun, bring people into your world. And then, I don't want to see reality. I don't want to see perfect this, perfect that. Who was it that just said that? Yeah, carbon dioxide just said this. Imperfections look cool anyway, or cooler anyway.
Right.
There's tons of things I can think of all my favorite artists looking at stuff in their comics, and I can see where something's not drawn correct, but it's drawn in such a way that it's cool, and you can tell, like Silvestri on some of the darkness stuff used to have like buildings and stuff where he was not worried about like a straight ruler to make sure that this thing was absolutely correct. And sometimes there might be like this, a little bit of a lean to something or whatever, but it just looked cool. Like it fit the atmosphere of the book, and when you notice it, you're like, wow, this is really awesome. Like I dig this.
It gives it personality.
Exactly. Yeah. Personality. Matt S says, I just wanted to shout out to thanks to El Joe for coming on this channel. Thanks for the channel for having him. Hope you do it again.
Us too.
Yeah,
Please.
this has been a pleasure to have you on. This has been an honor talking to you. This has been
Thank you for having me
cool.
on.
Open invite for whatever. Again, I can't say enough. Like Joe says, like this is an honor. Like I'm kind of shaking because it's like you're like one of like my art gods. It's like Make a Wish. So like this has been such a great time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Like, it's awesome.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's like I want to get into this kind of stuff, but it's just I never know what to say.
We got questions loaded up for next time.
I was streaming is an interesting thing because sometimes we get on here, we have lots of things to say, and the other shows we get on here, we're just like, what do we talk about?
Like Joe, when you're talking, you have a very very professional approach, and it's like I feel like I'm just stuttering left and right and not really getting the information across.
I would say you need to watch more of our shows because I stutter and trip over my words all the time. Every once in a while I can fool people into thinking like, I got this down.
To
me, I like doing it because it's fun to interact with the chat. Sean and I wanted to start doing it so we could do like what we're doing here today, is get people on that we've followed and has inspired us over the years, and get a chance to sit down and talk with you guys, so like to us that's why we're doing it, and that's what makes it fun.
Cool.
Before we get out of here, guys, a little bit of shilling has to go on because that's just what we do here. What we have, both of us have books out right now and crowdfunding. Sean's book Type 1 is here. We're not gonna spend too much time on this, so Sean, quick little ditty, and then
it's my love letter to stuff that Joe and other guys of Image Comics have created. It's an action adventure tale. If you like Mayan and Aztec lore with some conspiracy theories, this book's up your alley. Not trying to write Shakespeare, just trying to give you a fun, bombastic, cool story and art in your face. Written and drawn by me, colors by Dan Kemp. So he makes me look way better than I actually am. So don't be a bum. Back Type 1 and get the Ultimate 1 tier to get everything for a good buck. So thank you to everybody that has back this with your hard-earned money. And Joe is working on his variant cover now. I'll link it up whenever he's done, and then we'll get Dan to color it and finish the page the other day, working on one tonight, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you, everyone.
We do also want to shout out that there is a donated book tier. So
so this is getting switched up, so I still have to update this. So if you back this, you're going to be giving 2 books to kids with juvenile diabetes. As a thank you, we're going to give you a metal trading card by Jeff Muth, colored by Dan as well. And then we're going to give kids paper trading cards so they don't throw it all around their house like ninjas. So we're going to have JDRF take care of dispensing that, so nobody gets pissed off at me for giving out free books to the kids. But so far, we're doing good. And thank you, everybody that believed in this aspect of the project. So a lot of kids are excited when I told about this when I was in Chicago for the JDRF One Touch Nation. They're like, "Oh, I want the free book." I'm like, "That's not on me, partner." But it's cool. We got kids to read comic books and start drawing and draw big moons. So I think I won that.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a great cause with that. So check it out. We got links down below if you're in the YouTube. I'm not sure of other places. I do have a book called Reaper Destroyer, which is out right now. We are very, very close to hitting 71K on this campaign, getting close to 1,200 backers too. I'm very excited about this. I'm going to close down a couple of these tiers. Check out my social media. I'm talking about it on there. But this is just a book that's inspired by everything that I loved growing up in the 90s. Pretty much as a brain dump of movies and comics and everything with my style. I got to work with a couple amazing talents on this besides the Dale Keown cover. I got to have Matt Bat Banning do inks on my cover, which was a dream come true working with him. Joe Weems did some inking on some actual pages in this book as well. Just knocked it
I
out
know
of the
those
park.
guys.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the guys I grew up idolizing, I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to actually have them jump on and do some work on the book as well. So check it out, guys. We don't do a lot of shilling on this show, but just showing off that we got some products in the works right now.
And then we got skills.
Got a little bit of skill.
Yeah, we like
the book is being lettered right now, so hopefully we get it out to all the backers. And thank you everyone for supporting us over the year and just helping us out with getting our dreams out there. We love you guys. Couldn't have done it without you. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Look, Monday night, the Spawn review starts at 9 o'clock. We got Thomas Healy coming on. I'm gonna talk all things Spawns and what he's doing over there, and then we're gonna follow that up with Appreciating Comic Book Art Live with Kayla, and we're gonna look at cool comic book art. We don't know what it is yet. It's always a surprise, but it's gonna be awesome. But Wednesday, we're gonna be talking to Steve Burkow, one of our favorites ever, is going to be jumping on the show. So this has been a very fun month for us. We got to talk to Brett. We got to talk to Joe. We got to talk to Steve. We had VK Marion on. It's just been a very fun month to talk to some amazing talent. So subscribe to the channel so you can get awesome interviews like this and see great comic book art.
And what a way to celebrate 4 years of me and Joe just talking about like us. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
great.
You got to do it. All right. So we're going to jump off here. Joe, stick around after we go live. I want to talk to you for a second before we all dip out. But to the chat, we love you guys. Thank you for being here. We're going to run the short outro so we can get out of here. But until next time, where's the outro? There it is. As always, be good to each other. Take care of one another. And picture me naked. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Instantly.